YouTube.com/1045ESPN. And hop in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat. Go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Off the Bench channel as well. Jake, are you cool with you want to start with a little LSU film talk? Yeah. Okay. So I dove into it. And this game more than even most others, because normally when I watch the games, I am locked in on my computer the entire time anyway. So even my live viewing has a bit more understanding to it. This was not that time. We were celebrating the reunion of the boys, the 2011 team, and everything, and so whatever. I was very interested to see what this film revealed, and my God, Jake, the number one takeaway from this film for me is just how good this offensive line played. Now, I'm not sure what PFF's pass ranking grades or pass blocking grades were, but it was...
Well, they just got updated.
Because they were...
adjusted.
Fantastic. I'm interested to see what they graded out as, because I did not see many MAs. I think I saw one maybe that led to a sack, but what I saw was two freshman tackles, not just doing well, but dominating. I mean, consistently stonewalling their opponents. The emergence of Emory Jones at right tackle, Jake, was a sight to behold. And Will Campbell's improvement, even, and granted, I still don't think that they have a pass rush like 5 from Florida State, but and look, and this can't be ignored either. Jaden Daniels' ability to run the ball has ancillary benefits, right? Like, you could see Mississippi State, Jake, was being very purposeful in maintaining rush lanes, right? Like, they were not going crazy on the pass rush moves because they're scared of taking a gap and Jaden Daniels making them pay. So that helps when you have freshman tackles a ton. But Will Campbell is improvement in 2 weeks, and Emory Jones just in this one game, their ability to look so comfortable and so athletic. I mean, honestly, bro, I was kind of blown away. In fact, that would probably be my overall takeaway, is there is a freshman triumvirate that showed out on Saturday, and it was Campbell, and it was Emory Jones, and then on the defensive side of the ball, Harold Perkins was a dog. I mean, Jay Ward's dog number one. But in terms of guys that just really burst onto the scene, Harold Perkins, whether you're rushing the passer with him, like walked up in the A-gaps, whether it was delayed sort of blitz, whether he was lined up on the end of the line with Ojolari inside, like, Harold Perkins was all over that field, and I cannot wait to watch him play more football this year.
Yeah, just think about being a true freshman, and so Will Campbell had all of the hype coming in, and that's even more difficult, in my opinion. Then Emory comes in, and you're excited about him, but he's a guard. He comes in as a guard, and you're excited, and during camp, you're like, man, he might play sooner rather than later, but you're thinking next year, or maybe you put him in the guard rotation. He's out there at right tackle, and if we go back and we watch the Southern game, it's because in that game he was given effort, had great technique. He was a dog in that game. And again, like, we're not going to take anything from that game, but the coaches are going to watch that tape just like they watch this Mississippi State tape.
Yep.
Like, that tape for them doesn't change. So you turn that on, and he was doing some things that warranted him to get a start at right tackle in the SEC. And Pro Football Focus just adjusted their grades because they'll put them out initially off the first viewing, and then they'll go back and they'll do a deep dive into the tape, and they'll readjust kind of some of the grades. And so,
I mean, I cannot. Okay, I don't want to put a number on it, but okay, just give me that. Just give me that.
All right, so Emory Jones graded out at a 77%.
Yep.
It's really good.
I thought it would have been in the 80s, but still
it is
really
incredibly hard to get in the 80s. If you get in the 90s.
Is this pass pro only, or is this overall?
Yes, this is pass pro only. Will Campbell, 89.3.
Yes, that feels right. That absolutely feels correct.
I think our listener, I think we talk about Pro Football Focus enough here on the show. They realize that being in the high 80s is fantastic. You balled out.
Yeah, they grade hard. They're grade hard. Like, I don't know what they're even seeing to have Jones down in the high 70s. Like, I thought, I mean, he won 4 out of every 5 plays that I saw, for sure. But anyway, continue.
You got Garrett Dellinger at an 83.5.
Mm-hmm.
You have Charles Turner at 76.7.
Got to mention Charles Turner as well, because while there are still operational issues to clean up, and you heard Kelly talk about that, like, they got to get some of these cadence issues fixed, Charles Turner is a much better center than I've been giving him credit for. His ability to drop his hips and reset on the bull rush, I have questions about this entire line still when it comes to run blocking. Though I did like how they leaned on them.
Turner was the highest graded run blocker.
Yes. Okay, I could see that. But the thing about Turner is, I guess in my head, Jake, I was always assuming he was like a still bit undersized. I guess I just didn't think he was that good. And on this film, he looked really damn good in multiple areas. It is simply the operational stuff that has to get cleaned up with him. And then I'm sure that Frazier did not actually grade out especially well.
No, he did not. He graded out 58% in pass blocking, 65.8% in the run game. So
that is
he was much better in the run game than he was in pass protection. And your grades in run blocking were actually down.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, that was in keeping with my view. I think that right guard is the last position that you got to solve there.
Yeah,
and I don't know that it's Frazier. Then again, Bradford was making a lot of the same mistakes that Frazier was as well in game number 1, and it does come down to Bradford's health. But that is like if you're looking for things against New Mexico that you can maybe point towards, say, okay, this is something that we're going to be looking at the same way like Emory impressed against Southern.
Yeah.
Like somebody can still go kind of take that right guard job for their own. But that was by far, Jake, the most surprising part. Even when the offense wasn't having success in the first half, it was not the pass pro, which is a far cry from what we saw against Florida State. So take a bow.
And you didn't rotate.
Tinkering. Yeah, you didn't rotate either.
Yeah.
All the tinkering, having the balls to put 2 18-year-old tackles out there against a line that was supposed to be pretty good. Really fantastic stuff. And while the run blocking needs work, Jake, what they did do is they leaned on him. And really overall, this would be one of my other major takeaways, is that this was an LSU team that looked fantastically conditioned. And they looked to get stronger deeper into the game, where Mississippi State didn't want any more by the end. I mean, offense.
It's really been all 3 games.
Fair. Yeah, absolutely. I guess it happened against Florida State as well. But in this game, I saw something that I didn't see in Florida State. Like in Florida State, that was a Florida State team panicking, it felt like, and kind of blowing it. This was a Mississippi State team that was sick of getting hit.
Yeah.
We mentioned the defense being bullies. They started dropping balls consistently at the end because they were tired and because they were sick of Jay Ward. And honestly, I should probably start this conversation about this game on Jay Ward, because I don't know when the last time I've seen a defensive player flash like this in a single game was. He was everywhere. And he got rewarded with SEC Defensive Back of the Week. But he was fantastic. He set the tone. He was knocking guys around. And then at the end of the game, they were sick of it. They started dropping balls. You know who else was laying the wood, Jake, from the opposite side? Armani Goodwin.
Yeah.
Go back and watch that 50-yard touchdown run. That safety wanted no piece of one of those old purposeful bad angles, right? You don't want to line him up straight.
Yeah.
Kind of come in on the side, thinking maybe like get your arms on the hip. Goodwin runs right through it. And it's because both in pass blocking, he'd been lighting guys up, and when he had the ability to run the ball. So, yeah, that was a Mississippi State team that by the end was beat up. And I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe even Florida last year that would have I'm trying to think about the last time that I came out of here and felt like you just kind of dictated and beat someone up like you did on Saturday. It doesn't really matter. I am fantastic.
Certainly the Florida game, like what you were about to mention last year.
Yeah.
Like they knew what you were running and they couldn't stop
That's true. That's true.
That's the ultimate sign of disrespect.
I was fantastically pleased though with viewing this film. We can get into Jaden Daniels and everything else, but the point is you should be really excited about how the O-line played. You should be really excited about the emergence of guys like Darius Jones and Harold Perkins and the play of Jay Ward and the switch between him and Greg Brooks. Just a lot of very encouraging signs after a Florida State game that didn't feature many.
Yeah, you had Jay Ward and B.J. Ojulari graded as 2 of the highest players in the country in this game against an offense that had been dictating everything that they wanted so far in the season. It's not like you played directional school U. This was an offense that was putting up as many yards and points as anyone. And Will Rogers, we talked about it last week, you made him look like an average quarterback.
Yeah.
You truly did. The pressure that you got on him was not something he was comfortable with because he's just not used to it. And you could tell it affected his play. And that's something we didn't take into account because I'll raise my hand the highest. I didn't think you could get that type of pressure.
No.
But you did. and you did it consistently. Like when you're winning, now they brought forward and the Harold Perkins and the A-gap stuff. Gotta love when linebackers blitz up the A-gap. It is so tough if you have a guy that can do it to stop. But, Harold Perkins doing that, and then BJ just winning his individual matchups. And then even when they come up with a great scheme, and we showed the play yesterday where Perkins walks onto the line of scrimmage and you've got BJ Ojulari against a guard. He's going to win that every time.
Yeah.
Every single time he's going to win that matchup. And so Matt House deserves an attaboy for sure.
Well, and Matt House kind of proved us wrong, Jake, in that we said, kind of like LSU did last year, play a very base style, just rush three and hang back.
Turns out he knows a little bit more about defense.
Yeah, right. What he said was, no, I don't have to be so married to this idea, but what I can do, because what's the whole point? You have to, if you want to generate pressure, sure, sometimes you'll get like an Ojulari pass rush win where it almost doesn't matter. He's going to get there no matter what, right? But what's the other way to do it? You slow down the quarterback. And LSU was able to consistently confuse Will Rogers. And that speaks to great discipline in the secondary. I mean, think about all the coverage busts that you saw week 1 against FSU, and now think about the fact that this was a game where you were constantly lining up, giving one look, and then switching to another at the snap. And it had Will Rogers all kind of confused. He held on to the ball way longer than he has in the other game, and you saw what, the benefits that it ended up paying. And it's really based off of one key weakness that they identified, Jake, and that was that, look, they're not going to threaten you vertically. They hadn't done it all year. They couldn't do it this game. And anytime they tried, shout out to Mekhi Gardner and Jarek Bernard-Converse, like you weren't getting any separation. Like you could not win those one-on-one deep shots. So if you can't get threatened vertically, they use that to their advantage, and that's how they kind of schemed all this up. So they consistently confused Will Rogers. It allowed for pressure. And then I also think, Jake, for all the talk of Mekhi Wingo, who was excellent in the middle, Jaquelin Roy was as well. And with Mason Smith going down, really, this is Jaquelin Roy's time to shine. And in my own mind, I kind of lost him in the shuffle, but he was fantastic rushing the passer. Savion Jones was sneaky good as well.
He graded out really, really high because I'm looking at pass rushing grades right now, and B.J. Ojulari was certainly the talk of the town. I mean, he was right at 90%, but Savion Jones was right there at an 80% as far as his pass rush, and it was clearly the second best rusher on the night. Harold Perkins was right there as well.
Yep.
And then you had, who else you say, Jaquelin Roy?
Yeah, I thought Jaquelin Roy and Mekhi, Mekhi Wingo were solid.
Yeah, they were
solid up the middle.
They were higher than Ali Gay. Ali Gay was the lowest rated starter. Savion Jones definitely. Now it's 8 plays, but in those 8 plays, he graded out 76% on his pass rush ability. So probably earned himself a little bit of more playing time in that rotation for sure. I mean, BJ continued to dominate, but when you go out there like Savion did, you get a sack in 8 plays, that's going to open eyes like we talked about. It only takes one play to, as we all know, and that was probably a play that's going to get him some more playing time. But real quick, I did want to go back to you talking about coverage. Jay Ward graded out in coverage in the nickel against Mississippi State, air raid 90.3%.
I mean, he had one of the best games I've ever seen. Like, it's not even exaggeration. And it's both in terms of stats, like the stats show that, right? His statistical output for the day is pretty absurd, capped by that wonderful pick to end the game. But it's also in terms of leadership, intangibles, the tone setting that Jay Ward created with his play, with his hitting, kind of saying, okay, everybody follow me. And it was exciting, man. It was very exciting. So I exit this game, Jake, overall feeling – We after the Florida State game, we said, you're gonna have a couple weeks before you have a chance to feel better. And we were kind of wondering, would the Mississippi State game do? With how good Mississippi State looked going into the game, I am very pleased and feel orders of magnitude better about this LSU team than I did previously. I think you had some really key, and it's not to say there's not going to be bumps, because there absolutely will. And I still cannot bring my head around. Like, I cannot believe that I don't expect the tackles to be this great every single game. They're freshmen. Like, there's better pass rushers out there. Some guys are going to get them. But I do think you have found the answer going forward for this season, and who knows, maybe even the entire future with Emory Jones at right tackle. Still going to figure out right guard. I think Charles Turner is the answer at center. I think you figured out a really nice thing with this linebacker rotation defensively.
Yeah.
Where you're really working everybody in. Guys are staying fresh. They have different skill sets, but everybody's bought in. They're on the same page. And then, again, if Jaquelin Roy and Kywingo can step up in the middle, yeah, man, there's like, and then the emergence of Harold Perkins even. Joe's like, yes, I am getting excited about this year's team for the first time.
And I do want to say something about the opponent because I've heard this and it's starting to get me angry. And it's from like former teammates too. Like they were texting me throughout the game. Are we really that excited that we just beat Mississippi State by 2 touchdowns? Like, hey, this one, like this isn't the same LSU at the point that when we were playing, which that's what you're trying to get back to. And 2, it's not the same Mississippi State team that we should roll the helmets out there and beat up on.
Yeah.
Like when you look at these programs and where they're at, like Mississippi State is stable right now, okay? They had a winning record last year. They beat Texas A&M last year. They were 500 in SEC play. This year, they beat Arizona. Arizona's only loss is to Mississippi State. They beat Memphis. Memphis' only loss is to Mississippi State. So the teams that they beat, it's not like they're 0-3. Like Arizona just wouldn't beat North Dakota State. And you might not think that's a good win. That's a great win. They've beat a lot of FBS opponents. So, and Arizona was, 2-11 or whatever last year. So that's a much improved team. They've already won the same amount of games. And this Mississippi State team is good. Like you can go watch the tape and you can watch all 3 games. They've got Jimmys and Joes. And is it where you want to be? No, you want to be above that. That's fine. You can have that. But just know this is a good win because Mississippi State is going to go beat some of the big boys in the SEC. They will have a big win this year against one of the teams, Arkansas, A&M, like whoever it is. They're going to have one of those wins. So, no, it's not where you want to get. It is not the finish line. That's not the standard at LSU. But you can still understand that this is a damn good win. And don't just look, are we really celebrating an unranked Mississippi State win? Well, 1, Mississippi State should have been ranked. And 2, yes, because we're talking about building blocks to getting the program back to where we know it should be and can be and will be.
Well, yeah, and so I agree, Jake. Like, yes, Mississippi State is a legit team, but even outside of that, you've been bad. You've been under 500 over a 2-year sample size, okay? And you go down 13-0 at home against Mississippi State. And Mississippi State felt like they were really controlling that game, and they were in a lot of ways. So coming back and winning that game by 2 touchdowns, first game in the SEC of the Brian Kelly era, all of these are statements. Like Jake said, the building blocks towards the future. All right, we've gone very long. There is your film review. Again, exciting time. When you're at the water cooler today, drop the freshman triumvirate, okay? Harold Perkins, Will Campbell, and Emory Jones, they look different. And again, exciting to watch them this year. Exciting to watch them over the next 3, too. That's going to be really, really nice. All right, as far as Jaden Daniels goes, I thought Jaden Daniels was fantastic. I think that Brian Kelly's answer in the press conference yesterday is very much what I saw, where you're asked about running, but it's kind of what we said going into the game. Okay, Jaden Daniels running the ball. Will he miss some reads, some throws? Yes. But him running the ball is your best path to success. And I firmly believe that coming out of this game. Again, like we said, when you talk about the great pass protection, you cannot ignore the impact that Daniels' ability to run the ball is having, like the implicit threat that he represents, where as a rusher, you can't go crazy on these freshmen and try like an inside spin move, because if you do, well, Emory Jones is pretty fantastic at redirecting when you do try, but if you do, Daniels can just take off and everything breaks down, right? So there are benefits to it that you're not seeing, but I agree with Kelly yesterday, Jake, where he just basically said, look, man, the kind of rules for running, right? If it's in the progression or it is forced, that is a good run. If he misses like a high-low potential for a big play and takes off early, that is a bad run. And like everything else, it's not 100% good or bad, right? There is a mixture. Now, there is more good than bad. Like the majority of the time he's getting through his progressions or being forced, like the majority of the running decisions are good. And yeah, you're missing some stuff, but like Kelly said, that's always going to be the case, right? That's a constant work in progress, is getting him to do more of the good and try to minimize the bad. But overall, what I loved most about Jaden Daniels here, Jake, was for the second game in a row, kind of the intangibles in a way. Just the we need a play, we need to score, get it done. Down 16-10, start of the fourth quarter, 3rd and goal from like the 7, I think it was. and he just makes it happen. Looks off a couple defenders with Kayshawn, like he's going to throw that little wide receiver swing, basically. Then cuts it upfield, finds a way to beat the one guy that he has to, gets in the end zone. I thought Daniels looked tough, and most importantly, and then like the 4th and 3 throw, right? Making game-winning plays when the pressure was at its highest. And we've seen him do that now on both stages, which is, the intangibles of Jaden Daniels and the experience. That's what everybody was talking about when you're talking about the 30 starts. He looks very comfortable in high-pressure situations. He
does, and I know for me it was the drive right before the first half ended and getting points in that situation. Point. Now, was there times that maybe receiver popped open late? Yes, but with his legs, he got you down there and really was composed in that drive. Didn't panic, found a way. You don't care how it gets done in that situation. In a 2-minute situation, you're just trying to get yards and put yourself in a position to get points, and he did that. And then he completes a pass to Jaray Jenkins, and they score. And that, to me, that's when the game changed. If you don't get a score there, I don't know if you can come back.
I agree.
Because the momentum's completely different. Remember, they get the ball coming out of halftime as well. So that was the drive for me. And I was sitting right there in the south end zone and just watching him direct everyone, staying calm and staying within the moment, and then delivering a strike to Jaray Jenkins. That was the drive that kind of showed me, okay, this is kind of where he thrives as well. And I know a lot of people want them to go hurry up. You can't go tempo every single drive. You can't do it. That's not who you are. It's not who you're going to be. But I love knowing that you have a quarterback that when you go tempo, when it has to be accelerated, he can do it and actually probably thrives in that situation.
Yeah, and yes, and now you got me thinking about tempo. Yeah, I mean, look, the ability to switch things up, like you're not Tennessee. You have to be true to yourself. Like going tempo 24/7, that's a full commitment. That's a different style of offense.
Yeah, you've done that completely. In the spring and summer and fall, and you've done that, and that's part of your identity and the core of who you are.
Yeah, and so and so you can't just go 24/7 without completely kind of having to overhaul things, because also teams prepare for you vastly different if you're literally only doing tempo, and then you have to be prepared to counter their counters. So whatever. As far as Jaden Daniels goes, I remain very pleased. I thought he was fantastic. The game mattered the most. And Jake, you're absolutely right. Brian Kelly said in the post game that halftime touchdown was massive. Another answer that I really liked out of the Brian Kelly presser yesterday, talking about man house and the defense, like we said, Ali Gay did not have the best game. He didn't really flash on film like the others did. But Brian Kelly did mention the versatility of Ali Gay, Roy, B.J. Ojolari, just the versatility of that position group. One of the great parts about them, and I never really think about this from the defensive side of the ball, I don't know why, Jake, but it allows for schematic disguises through their personnel that like, okay, the same way, remember the 2019 offense, it was always 11 personnel, right? 3 receivers, Clyde and Thad Moss. But you could put them in 5 wide. You could put them however you wanted. They can do the same thing with this D-line when they're on defense. And that's how they confused Will Rogers. One of the key ways in which they did is that, these guys you can put 4 hands on the ground, you can put 3, they can play all over the line. And so the versatility of the D-line paid big dividends as being one of the keys as to how you were able to confuse Leach and Will Rogers.
No, it's a great point because, 2019, you could have Thaddeus Moss in the backfield with Clyde, and they ran ISO out of that. Yeah. Jets would be in the backfield, and they'd run a swing pass to him, and they lined up all over the place, even though it was the same core guys. B.J. Ojolari, how many times do you think he dropped in coverage in this game? And I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
8.
15.
Oh, wow.
15 times he dropped in coverage in this game. And so to your point, T.
Yeah.
It's backing up your point. I mean,
I
wouldn't have guessed he dropped 15. I would have said
no, he led in pressures. You would think he would have got a maximized pass rush stat.
And so that's switching it up, and that's giving them a different look. Harold Perkins was in coverage 9 times. Now he's playing in the middle, but still, I mean, he lined up at edge.
He dropped into coverage a lot.
Plenty of times. Ali Gay had coverage snaps as well. So
one of my favorite Harold Perkins snaps, Jake, is this delayed rush that he had where he tricks the guard into thinking he's covering the back. Where, like, even though the back actually goes the opposite direction that he's looking to go block somebody, the guard doesn't know that. And so Perkins like points his eyes like to an imaginary player in the backfield and is kind of running like very robotically this direction. And then the second the guard turns, you can tell he's looking at the corner of his eyes. He turns on a dime and just jets to Will Rogers. So there was a lot of even there, right? That's him giving you the read that he's dropping into coverage, but he's actually not. He's on a blitz.
That is a great point, T, because in the NFL, you might not be able to get that guard on something like that. The guard knows if a back's back there in the backfield.
Yes.
He just does. He knows his protection. He knows where he's got help. He knows where if somebody else comes who's got him. In college, you don't really know that.
Yeah, dude.
In college, you kind of memorize your plays for the most part. You know what you're supposed to do. And, you know, sometimes if you have a good one, like T-Bob was really good at this in college, like he knew what the guy next to him did. He knew what the guy to the right and the left did. That's about it.
I still could have gotten got by these eyes.
Yeah, but you don't, like, you didn't know if a back was back there and what he was doing back there. So in college, if you know that, it's a benefit for you because he's thinking, oh, man, where's his eyes? Where's he looking right there? And he reacts to something that's really not even possible. So
one other thing that I loved, they ran a 5-wide play with John Emery at receiver.
Yeah.
And from a tempo standpoint, if you feel like you can legitimately operate with Emery at receiver, well, then you can do some of those drives where you get to be that amorphous blob that we were just kind of mentioning on the offensive side of the ball as well, where you can just run a lot of different formations with one personnel grouping. So I thought, Jaden Daniels solid. Matt House, take a bow. Coordinator of the week.
Yeah, so Jaden early in the game in Gulf South kind of talking about where he sits in Tiger Stadium and the receivers getting separation. They did, and the receivers were getting kind of frustrated early in the game, and I think that settled down a little bit. There were certainly times, the All-22 does show that you had receivers come open and maybe you were quick to pull the ball down, and that's kind of what BK is talking about.
Yep.
Like those moments,
Yep.
You've got to be better, but there's also moments that he did exactly what the play called, which was rush the football, bring it down, pick up positive yards. And so that was early in the game. I totally agree with you. It got better as the game went along. And even like the pass to Jure for the touchdown, it's like, okay, I know it came late into the first half, but that got him kind of in a rhythm of throwing the football. I know he threw one to Kayshawn early in the game, but there's part of that, and I understand that. But there's also a lot of times in that drive to get a touchdown before the half that he makes a play that nobody else on your roster can make.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to – it's kind of – you're living with some of it. You're going to have to take the good with the bad.
Well, and it's threading that needle between not taking away what makes him special to begin with, but also trying to maximize his ceiling. And it's a tough needle thread, but it's one thing. And he missed throws. He had the very bad 3 throws in a row with Mason Taylor missing touchdown. He missed, but again, made more game-winning plays than not and made the biggest throws when they mattered.